Hi, I'm Danger Dan Jers, the host and GM of the D&D Real Play podcast, D&D Dark. Join us on Wednesdays for an absurd, over-the-top comedy horror adventure, starring some of history's most infamous monsters.
I'm Ben Magnet. I play Mary Frankenstein, our barbarian.
I am Daniel Cruz. I am playing Imhotep the Mummy, our cleric.
I'm Jordan, and I play Larry Talbot, a lycanthropic warlock.
I am Grayson, playing Jack Griffin, the Invisible Man, the party's rogue.
I am Aaron. I play the Phantom of the Opera, our bard.
For more information, go to dndarkpodcast.com and listen to us anywhere you find podcasts.
Welcome to SideQuests, your high-octane distraction from every other podcast. We're a pen and paper RPG audio show featuring chatter about rules and how to master them, epic world-building, player investment, and interviews of the people who make the games you love. Listen in as we trade tabletop war stories, make judgment calls on odd situations, and do everything we can to give you more RPG resources than you could dream of, all from a simple side quest. I am your paladin of podcast, Craig, and with me...
I'm Paladin Eli. Today I had a banshee scream of an intro and nearly killed Rob. Paladin Rob, I should say.
Thanks, Eli. Yeah, so after a near heart attack, and I know our users can't, our listeners can't see this. Craig gave somebody a cue, but his screen is different than everybody else's, so nobody knows where they point. And we might want to just put cards on toothpicks at this point. We'll just hold them up when we
need colored flags.
Dude, for sure. For sure. Craig's like, oh my God, shut up, Rob.
An order. Just have an order. That's a solution. All right, fine.
It is what it is. So funny thing for our listeners is that we're going to jump right back into this conversation we were having. And Craig, you were talking about how you had just kind of had a session 0. Eli joked that it was 00 because you hadn't finished. And I was super curious on what you're doing because you said slow roll until after the new year to get fully knee deep in this. And that is the scheduling conflict that everybody seems to have between November 1st till after January 1st is the holiday season. What do you guys do?
So I'm soon to be starting up a sort of sandbox style game. I'm using Worlds Without Number. I got 4 players, and we're doing it in original setting. So there's a lot of information to transfer. I don't want to give them a giant info dump. I don't want to hand them a 50-page setting Bible and say good luck to tell me when your character is done. It just seems mean. Also, nobody will read that.
Yep.
So we have we only play every 2 weeks, schedules being what they are, and so the first session 0 was this past Saturday, and we started talking about the individual facets of the campaign setting because one of the most important elements is that the players have goals. That the campaign is very player directed. At the end of every session, they say, "Okay, next time we want to go do X. We want to go to this weird place. We want to go pursue this machination against this guy we don't like," something like that. And then I spend the next week writing this stuff, and I hand it to them. The game is well suited to do that kind of stuff. So if they don't have very clear goals, if they don't have good context for the campaign, that's going to be very difficult for them to even know what they can do, let alone the fun part of how to do it or what happens after. And so we slow rolled it because, why cram all that down someone's throat in, a mere 3 or 4 hours? That's overwhelming.
That's considerate.
This is fair. It's considerate too. But the holidays are coming up and we only play every 2 weeks. And so this is sort of something that always comes up every year. The holidays roll around: Thanksgiving, Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year, all this stuff comes together. And you got to accommodate for it. You can't just be like, why didn't you show up? And they'll be like, because it's December 23rd, my man. Like, what?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I don't know. That people go on vacation. I think it's difficult to do anything but just say like, okay, we'll see you later. But the more interesting question to me about that is, how do you maintain a sense of continuity, assuming, of course, that you're not going to say, you will show up. And I don't think we're like that.
Well,
what do you do? Yeah, what's your deal?
Part of the success of my long-running online game is that we always meet, regardless of if we're playing the RPG or not. We have like a quorum. So if we have X number of players there, then we can play the main campaign and we'll advance. If there are less players, then if I have something like some quick adventure prepared, we might run a protege adventure where it's all the main characters kind of coterie of followers, and they go off and do something and kind of gain experience points or explore more about the world. Or test out an encounter that I wanted to try out or a monster I created.
For that group, you test the encounter with the group you're going to run it for eventually?
Oh, that makes it a lot better. Because then they know a little bit more about the monster coming into it. Because then the monster is almost ingrained into the world's lore, as opposed to just being, oh, it's a crazy new monster. Where they're like, because if it like wipes out their proteges, then they're like, oh my goodness, we've heard about this creature.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so it's not literally the encounter, but if you're writing a monster, you might run it for their sort of side group, and that's like, oh yeah, that's a thing that exists. That's actually kind of a neat twist. I hadn't considered that.
We also kind of we almost treat it like a test environment too, because like that's also where we if we're going to bring in a new house rule or a new way of doing things, then we'll try it in a protege adventure. And then if they like it, then they can apply it to the main, because then it's like sometimes proteges they don't care about, and they'll just be like throw them into crazy situations or test out whatever, and if it works, it works.
That reminds me. Wait, did I talk about the death flag house rule I was considering on the podcast already? Did I mention that last time?
Yeah, that's the nobody can die unless they're willing to give it all and die for a cause or
the party roundly rejected it. They said no, thank you. We don't want that.
Oh, cool.
I was shocked.
Interesting.
Yeah. But they said, no, death's cool. We're fine with that. And that was completely against my intuition. I was like, okay, all right then. Never mind.
Rock on.
Yeah. I got a question. When you mentioned when you kind of develop a monster, we've heard about Craig's spider at the heart of 8 bears. Did I get that right?
Spider at the heart of 8 bears.
Which is kind of cool. And I briefly talked about my amalgamation of Stephen King inspired Myst monsters. What kind of things have you kind of developed to run for your proteges to test out?
A lot of times it's not necessarily monsters, and it's more traps or scenarios, or I try to test out different there's with it, every monster has kind of different niches, and the more that you overlap or with different scenarios, you kind of add complexity to scenarios or the difficulty. And unless you really play around and see how your players do with all the, maybe they're fighting on some sort of log that they could fall off of. Well, if you want to have them on a pirate adventure, fighting on top of the mast where they could fall off and die, maybe try it somewhere where they fall 10 feet and there's a poisonous centipede down there or something. Where it's still kind of dangerous, but
it's less dangerous.
You kind of get the sense of the mechanic of, if I ran this, just toss it at the main group, they're just dead. So
right. Okay, I like that.
Do you find that you end up trying to validate a lot of those ideas in play? That's your go-to method of trying to figure out, I've had this idea, let's test it, versus just being willing to go straight to production, so to speak, with ideas that have cropped up?
I think you should test everything, and no matter how many times you test it, you're going to learn something new, or a better way to do it, better way to run it, better way to introduce it to the players. I feel like it's really hard to have an idea that's just perfect right off the bat.
I agree, because there was one time I was overly inspired by the Dresden File series, and I'm not sure if you guys have read all of the books or not.
I read about 8, 10 of them, something like that.
Probably close to the end there. In the books, Dresden mentions by name a gorilla octopus-like creature, and he calls it an octocong. So I'm like, all right, you know what? A huge gorilla head with 8 freaking arms. Sounds pretty badass. And I had an idea. I'm like, you know what? A cult is going to summon this stupid thing, and they're going to throw it at my party. Not everybody could show up that day. So I'm like, I'm going to throw it at them anyway. I think there was in retrospect, I think it was like a CR 18 and they were like CR 12. So overly challenging if I would have run it as necessary. But again, not everybody was there. So I'm like, you know what, we'll use it as a test environment. You guys die, it's not a big deal. It's just going to be like a dream state. It never happened. You guys are just cursed in the area or whatever. And they were cool with it. So I like the testing ability, the test idea. I've thought about bringing the damn thing back, but I don't know how it's going to fit.
Yeah, the
I'm sorry, was there a clear fit for the 8-armed gorilla head in the first place? It's a critter from another world.
Yeah, an evil cult summoned it. They were going after a cult, summoning evil shit.
Fair enough.
checks out to me.
I'm just
Gorilla
trying to
Kong?
like the dungeon ecology article for the Octokong.
I don't know. I was overly inspired by other popular media. So I just took the basic phrases of what I remembered. I was like, you know what? Kraken, 8-arm slam attack. Good.
Sure, perfect.
But yeah, that test environment, I like to do that. I don't call it a test environment. I'll just kind of give them the cheesy TV trope. Like, hey, you guys are actually just dreaming, something wiggled in. You guys didn't need a will save because you weren't going to pass it anyway.
I will also say sometimes we just play board games. But the main thing is that like consistently we do hang out during those like that general block of time.
Mm-hmm.
So and we've been doing it for so long that I feel like people just, they know to keep that time time free.
I do have to say that consistency is the most crucial ingredient in having a healthy gaming group. Every time I've ever seen somebody try to put something together and be like, yeah, we're going to play on this day, and then we'll just see when everyone else's schedules line up to schedule the next session. 2 or 3 sessions, nothing works. Gone. Totally disintegrates. The only thing I've ever seen work is we will play on this day of the week, every so often weeks, be there. That's never going to change.
Yeah, that's happening to one of the groups I'm currently in. I said I started a traveler group, or I was playing in a traveler group.
Yeah.
It's already starting to melt a little bit with the scheduling. Started on a Monday. Someone started school. The day had to shift, and then there was enough shifting that,
oh shit.
Well, might just melt away.
Rob, what do you got on this one?
It sucks, but there's an entire community of meme creators that make jokes about this shit all the time. Like, hey, when's the next time we're going to play? Our schedules match up in 35 years. I mean, it's one of the things that actually bothers the shit out of me. And I hate to say that. The
memes or the fact that it's hard to schedule?
The scheduling issue. Because Craig, like you said, we're going to meet on this day at this time. This is our schedule. And I take that seriously. Like, this is my time to hang out, chill, relax. Even though I'm DMing, I am committed. It's still relaxing. I enjoy doing this. So it's my time to see friends, get some stuff done. So when I say bi-weekly, Saturdays, 5 p.m. be here, I expect people to be here. Yes, I'll schedule around holidays. But when people just don't show up or they don't want to show up, it bothers the shit out of me.
I would be furious. If somebody no-called, no-showed me once, I'd check in and say, hey, are you okay? But the second time somebody no-called, no-showed, I would say, you need to tell me what happened or you need to excuse yourself from the table. Like,
yeah, it's just one of those things. It's like, I don't understand why some people have such a hard time with it. Like, I don't like planning the next game at the end of the session that you're currently in. It sucks. It's inconsistent and it bothers it. It just bothers me.
I don't ever want to be a hard ass about it, but I think that just to be able to have a functional social experience, there need to be, expectations of like, hey, when are we going fishing again? Like,
yeah.
I don't know. Eli, you're smiling. What do you got?
The social contract.
Oh, yeah, social contracts.
For earlier discussion, please see.
Yeah. Just show up to the games or just speak like adults,
Yeah. Yeah. I think I mentioned
common decency.
It is. And I think I mentioned I rage quit an entire game as the DM, by the way, because somebody constantly would tell me an hour before game, like, hey, I'm not making it. I got to work overtime. Like, all right, so you probably knew a day and a half ago. You could have told me then. So, dude, I'm heated up now. I'm sorry. Irritated.
Well, the hardest thing to do is find or create a good group.
Yeah, I'm actually... Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I think that there's it's difficult to discuss. It's difficult to talk about, but I think that there's a pretty important split in player mentality, probably GM mentality as well, but I'm speaking from mostly a GM's perspective on this kind of thing, between people who are showing up to play the game and people who happen to play the game when they show up. And I think that, I don't know if that's enough of a differentiation in its description, but basically,
No, I don't think so.
You don't think it's enough of a description? It's not clear. Okay.
I get what you're saying, but I'd like you to kind of expand that.
All right. So, like, for some people, at least in my experience, I have seen that some players will turn up because the default thing to do when they show up for the social experience is to play Dungeons and Dragons or whatever you're playing that night.
Mm-hmm.
But it's primarily a social experience where we happen to play D&D. And the flip side of that coin is the player who is shown up to play D&D, and as part of that gets to enjoy the social experience of being among others. It's okay. Does that make more sense?
Yeah, that expanded definition I think will help a lot of people.
Okay. I think that the majority of the problems you run into with people who just like, they don't show up, they don't tell you, whatever. I got something else going on, I'll tell you 5 minutes beforehand. I feel like they come from the group of players who regard it as a primarily social experience wherein one happens to play a game, versus somebody who's like, yeah, I'm here to play the game. Y'all are my co-players, but I'm here to do this specific action. I feel that those people are reliable players. They turn up, they're polite, they're thoughtful about their experience.
I think one of the hardest parts about being a GM isn't necessarily even running the game, but managing the game and setting yourself up for success.
Not nearly as fun. Yeah, that's why it's hard.
Yeah, it's not fun at all. But like I put a lot of thought into, especially like when I'm starting a new game, about who I invite to play. Not that I'm not willing to give new people new chances, but like I do know how some players will what kind of roles or how they fit into a party, like how consistent they are, how often they, if they read the rule book or if they have really good ideas. I don't think you need a perfect mix, but you need a variety.
I agree. And I briefly mentioned just a few seconds ago, I'm kind of in that stage looking for a second party. And I told you guys about the guy I rage quit over. He is actually one of my favorite players. I invited him back for this other campaign.
I remain baffled about that, but okay.
Not the asshole guy, not the cringeworthy redeemed cringe lord guy.
Oh, by the way, I do want updates on this gentleman if you have them.
Oh, I've actually got one, by the way. We had another campaign. He was polite, well-mannered. We actually talked about something prior, and I snapped at him because I'm fed up with bullshit. I don't know if you guys can even tell where I'm sitting, not just physically, but my mental status is I'm fed up with a lot of extra crap, and I'm not mincing words very easily or well. But I didn't give him chances to really bullshit, go downhill, and he didn't take anything. He didn't try to wiggle disrespect in there to any player in particular. He was very attentive. He was driving the story, both respectful all night to me, everybody else, conscious of everybody's time. The kind of player that I expected him to be on session 1. And what we had talked about before game had nothing to do with game at all. So hopefully...
Did the gentleman find a therapist? Well, this just seems night and day compared.
You know what? I'm not sure, but I think what we had talked about, which the only reason I don't want to mention any sort of details here is primarily because it's easier to remain vague and have
don't out the dude.
Yeah. So, but I think he kind of caught on to what I was saying, is that there was still a little bit of a rational thought with what he was debating prior to game. So he was good. I liked it. I'm glad that he was there. Everybody else had a good time with him. No complaints. It was solid. And if we can keep that up, we're good. If I got to talk to him like that every 2 weeks, not good. So I'll know next game.
Do no harm, but take no shit, man.
Yeah, really. This other guy, though, the one I rage quit my entire campaign over, is primarily because he kept telling me about overtime really, really late to the game. I invited him back because he's the same player that still talks about when he played as a cleric and he lost his ability to speak with his god.
But when he does show up, he's a good player.
Right. And
Okay.
He has a habit of showing up. He just happens to have a 50-50 split with habit of having overtime that he doesn't know about until an hour before game. So we're giving it a try. But I'm looking for newer players too. And I found at least 3 players who don't have as much experience in the Pathfinder system, but are at least old-time players or have played 5e first and for a few months. So they have experience. And I love having new players at the table. I love teaching the game. I love bringing new people in and experiencing it, because that mix Eli's talking about is super important to me, not just as we sit at the table or game, but because of what you had mentioned as well, Craig. I want players who want to be here. That is what I'm trying to get. Eventually, I like to grow my pool, so anytime I've got a good idea, I can pick from players I know that are going to rock that world, which is generally what I try to get. But can be a bitch. I'm gonna have to
It's worth it though. It's worth it. Trying to get the right mix. The hard part is when you accumulate people and you realize like, okay, wait, like I've got 9 people in the pool and there's definitely a top 5 among them or a top 6 among them, and you're like, all right, do we just sort of not feed the bottom 3 in terms of like you don't want to be passive about it, but being active about saying, hey, you didn't make the cut, like that's rough, man. That's a really hard conversation to have. I wouldn't want to have it. I don't know. I don't have a solution for that kind of thing.
Well, am I correct in understanding that you run like one game and then it replaces, you go on to the next system, but there's generally kind of one game?
At the moment, I actually have multiple groups going on, but it's the sort of serial monogamy, as it were, is probably an accurate description. Yeah. I don't run an open table, and I don't run a table that has more players than I expect to show up every time.
So I have one group that's just like a large group, and we just play every Sunday. But then I also start new games, new shorter campaigns, and I'll run it with. That's when I like to try to bring in all the other people that, like, I try not to invite many people from, like, if I do, I'll invite one person from that main campaign to play in that secondary campaign. But I also don't like to always play with the same group. Got to mix it up.
I agree. And as much as I love playing with, I'll call my core, I got 2 core groups, I guess. I got a core group I will play with, and I got a core group I will DM for. They are not the same groups. I enjoy both aspects. And when I'm a player, I like to sit down at that particular table. I don't like to branch out too much, primarily because I've experienced a lot of, I don't want to say bad DMs, but maybe a little lazier or more restrictive DMs, people who aren't as prepared, or they're way too controlling, micromanaging for a party, and it doesn't fit my general play style.
So I have something interesting that's coming up, and I haven't really talked about it much because I didn't know if it was going to get off the ground, but there's kind of like this group of GMs that goes and runs conventions and runs events at conventions for Hackmaster.
Yeah.
And we always see each other, but we never really get to play in each other's games because we're always running.
Right.
Well, starting on Monday, we had a session 0, and starting on Monday, we're going to have our first session, but we're all playing in a game together.
Hey,
one of the GMs is running. And so I'm very interested to see how it goes, because I know we all have very, we have different DMing styles and, slightly different rules and how we like to run it. And so I'm very interested to see how it goes. Yeah.
Man, that ought to be fascinating. How many people are in this group? It's all GMs?
I think it's 5 or 6. I don't remember how. I think it's 5. It's 5.
That's big news, Eli. How have you kept it from us for that long?
Well,
this is that is what every one of us kind of aspires to, having.
Hey, man, birds fly, grass grows, and groups fall apart. So until it's a real thing, you don't want to say it.
That's true. You don't want to jinx it.
Yeah, I don't want to jinx it. And session 0s can come and go, but until you really have that session 1 on the books, then, I mean, we still got till Monday. So
Well, look, man. Hey, knock on wood and spit and turn 3 times, and hopefully your first session goes well. We'd love to hear about how that goes.
Yeah,
I'm
for
very
sure.
excited.
I'm trying to figure out how much beer to ask my players to bring.
I mean, are you up for bribes? Because depending on how much you're willing to give away.
We fully and officially transitioned over the Monday game from being completely remote to being in person now. We've got the
Nice.
one fully remote guy. He's actually up in Seattle. He's on he's the big talking head. We put him on a laptop and point him at the table. But I have an in-person game that I'm regularly running now. Make a big pot of chili, pass it out, and
I
start going.
cannot recommend it enough to have like a rotating schedule of food and or drinks. So if you're just providing food every time, sure, but then have one player bring the beer every session, or do the food and the beer separately. But
There you go.
rotating, then everyone feels equal in it, and
Well, cooking for people anyway. So it's like, hey, tonight's night we're going to do the bulk cooking. So y'all get a pot of chili, or y'all get like a bunch of spaghetti or something like that. But yeah, no, I think maybe we rotate. Hey, you bring the beer next time, or something to that effect.
yeah, then no one ever feels like resentful, and there's not really any like keeping track of how much anything costs. It's just you bring what you can.
Or we show up with 6 bottles of wine, and the session turns into bacchanalia. So we can figure it out.
I got a question here.
Yeah, what's up?
I haven't established like a food order or drink order kind of thing. Because we all kind of fend for ourselves. How would I go about politely bringing that idea up?
Are you excusing yourself from the rotation, or are you saying, hey, let's do this to make some sense to it?
I would include myself, and I would even, consider starting first, because that way, hey, I'm hosting. I like to provide some stuff for you guys. Let's figure out a rotation. Just do that, because I think it's a great idea.
We started with pizza when I first started doing it, where you'd bring pizza of like and then we had like a pizza order that you could bring or know to bring. Oh, 1 veggie, 1 meat, 1 cheese, whatever. And then people could bring pizza from wherever frozen pizza. We were in college, so that's how we started, with a lot of frozen pizzas. So
yeah, that's fair.
I think you ask, hey, this is an idea. I want to get people into it. How do you all feel about it? If somebody's like, hey, I'm not there for it, then they have an opportunity to step out. Otherwise, say like, look, this is what's going to be expected. We're going to do the rotation. Here's what it is. And I think it applies also to the sort of thing we were talking about earlier, where you have to treat people like adults and expect that they're going to be upfront with you and have reasonable conversations with you. I've gotten myself into trouble by assuming that things would be more difficult than they actually were, and beginning right off the bat with some kind of countermeasure to correct for a difficulty that had not emerged yet.
Okay.
I think just be real. Just say, here's the idea. I'd like to get you all involved in it. And if somebody says, I don't know about that, then okay, talk to them. But
I had a group that there were just 4 of us, and 3 of us, we'd always meet at 5:30, and 3 of us would eat, and the other person would come. They'd still show up at 5:30 and hang out with us but they'd have dinner before, and they'd just hang out and chat. So
yeah, I like that. And I don't mind providing some food when people show up a little early, especially if I invite them over early. Like, hey, let's work on some of these things. I'll make some dinner for us, get everything situated. But a full rotation sounds kind of cool. I do have a little bit larger of a party, so cheaper food is definitely not bad. And none of us are picky, so it should work out pretty well. Other than that, you mentioned wine. And do you this is your first game like in person. So have you guys, when you did your in-person games, how do you guys feel about drinking at the table?
nobody that I've ever played with has gotten. I mean, are we dropping F-bombs on this podcast? Do we do that now?
You know what? I've said enough. I'm gonna have to mark this episode explicit anyway.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Nobody gets completely smashed at my games. That just gets difficult to manage. I'm a lightweight, so I have to play it pretty cool with how much I'm drinking. Unless we have decided to play a game where it is a drinking game. We once played a game called The Skeletons, which is not a drinking game as written. It is a semi-serious meditation on the passage of time. You play skeletons, defending a dead sorcerer's tomb. And every time you begin a portion of the game, it's a single session game. You turn the lights on and you say, you know, the skeletons, you have awoken from your slumber and you must defend the tomb from intruders. And after you resolve that, it's a pretty simple system. You say, okay, the skeletons return to their slumber, and you turn the lights out and you sit there in darkness and silence in the room for an increasing length of time. The first one's 20 seconds or so, and then by the end of it, by the fifth iteration, you're sitting in darkness and silence for a full 5 minutes.
What?
And every time we finished the section where we were playing as the skeletons, it was like, okay, it is time to return to your slumber. Do a shot. And I think over the course of maybe an hour and a half, we were about 5 shots in of bourbon. And sitting in the dark, 5 shots in complete silence, while you think deep thoughts about the passage of time and being a skeleton, is a unique role-playing experience I would encourage anyone of legal drinking age to partake in.
Sure, let's do it.
Yeah, we don't. We've had a couple, like in my groups that now plays. We're all at home. There are some people that drink. There are some people that dance with the jazz cabbage. There's.
Please continue.
So there's that, but no one ever gets too rough. Although my dad was really into microshots for a while. He really likes
microshot.
A bad idea. So he's
Toothpaste cap full of liquid.
So he really, really likes like limes and lemons. And so he was like, I really hate it when like I like tequila. So he's like, I'd have a shot of tequila with a lemon, and then I just have to waste the lemon. I just have to eat the whole lemon, which kind of gets boring.
Wait. Is your pop one of those people who will just eat a whole lemon like an apple?
Not like an apple, but he'll slice it, and then he'll see him like walking around with just like a little tray of sliced lemons.
Okay, because my friend was recently working the intake line of a haunt, and I think he told me that he watched somebody just eat an entire lemon like an apple while they were standing in line. And it's like hearing about a fucking cryptid. Like, wow, you saw it, but that can't be real. Sorry, tell me about your father's tequila.
Anyways, so he'd be like, oh, instead of taking one shot with one slice and wasting a lemon, I'll take 6 micro shots.
What is a micro shot?
It's not 1/6 of the shot, I'll tell you that. It's probably more
just
like a
just tell us the story about your father's drinking. I'm so...
Yeah. No, he was like, oh no, it's totally not. It's just a micro shot. And so he quickly realized that was he'd be getting a little intense.
I imagine he's not pouring the mezcal into the graduated cylinder and measuring the meniscus here. Like,
no, he would just do it for D&D sessions and doesn't do it anymore.
Wait, I didn't realize that this is your father was playing at the D&D session.
Oh yeah, he plays in my Sunday game. So
does he listen?
Cool.
Does he listen to this?
I have no idea. But
sir, you're an inspiration to us, sir.
We don't think you're an alcoholic, but we're all going to take 6 micro shots.
He gave up. He did like keto for a while, and so stopped drinking for that.
Hold on. I want to say that I respect you, sir, very deeply for not wasting any citrus. Say what you will about the alcohol, but to waste citrus would truly be a crime.
And same thing to Craig's haunt guy who just watched the dude eat a lemon.
I could never do that.
Yeah, no. I'd peel it first.
Oh, but long story short, there's a little bit of drinking in my games now. It doesn't bother me, but I did, like, when I went to college, I was like, I'm just going to force my friends to play D&D with me. And I was on the Ultimate Frisbee team and definitely lived in a party house. And so sometimes it would be like, hey, we're going to play. Like, we would play house games where just people would be like, there's 4 of us here, let's just play a game. And so frequently it would be like Friday night, and we'd be like, let's play some D&D. If you roll a 1, you have to take a shot. And so I have played a number of those games, and well, they're interesting.
Yeah.
Talking about waking up later, and it was all a dream. Cannot possibly be canon.
I had to institute don't show up to my house intoxicated in a 2-drink maximum.
Holy shit. I think each one of us plays with very different people.
Well,
yeah, I've never had someone be like the lone person show up wasted. I have had people play like some people roll up and be on like LSD or mushrooms. But usually they clear it with the group before they do it.
Yeah, my player came up. Their intoxication was more drug induced, and they were generally pretty chill, but sometimes pretty loopy. It was hard to game with, and it became more of a distraction. One of my players doesn't get to drink at home, so he drinks when he can when he goes out. So I'm like, all right, we'll have a few drinks. He brought something stronger than normal. Got really shit-faced. In fact, I think we all got shit-faced, by the way. Nothing happened except for he destroyed my battle mat because he spilled 2 drinks all over my battle mat. And
what does alcohol do to a Chessex mat, by the way? Does it just through it? Like
No, it's fine.
No, the Chessex Max is fine. I was using my cheap one because we were drinking, and it was a laminated one, so it actually ended up starting peeling in a corner. I taped it back down. I use it for my travel games when I did the library thing. But because of that situation, I'm like, yeah, no, two max were good. We're not going to do this shit drunk as fuck.
There's some stains here and there on I've got like an 8-foot Chessex map that I had. By the way, shout out to 2 random people in Montana and Michigan who both had the same vehicle. I bought the same size, ginormous plywood to take back to be a gaming table. What do you know? Both times it didn't fit into my car. Both times some random stranger was like, want me to take that to your house for you?
Wow.
And they did.
That's nice.
Wait, you bought the same table twice?
Well, like I bought like giant plywood for the table because I just put folding tables down and then with just giant table. Bought the same size table both times. Same vehicle.
So you knew this was going to be a problem.
I was like, oh no. Oh, I forgot that this happened.
But the important part is that even though those purchasing decisions went the way that they did, you didn't waste any limes.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind.
No, that's good though. That's good. See, I got this 4 by 10, 5 by, I think it's 4 by 10, 48 inches by 120 inch conference table with a glass top.
Oh, the one that nearly broke your hand off.
Yes.
Able to.
That's still swollen in the one spot, by the way. So
seek medical aid.
I have it. It's not broken. But the medical definition, I don't remember. The doctor explained to me though that it's very similar to when somebody gets a concussion in the head. There's a soft membrane over the bone that can actually bruise and swell, and that can take months to go down.
Do you have compartment syndrome in your hand?
Dang.
I have no idea.
No, no. That's way more serious. You'd lose the hand. Never mind. You're good. Never mind. It's fine.
It still works.
Don't Google that, listeners.
Yeah. Okay. But anyhow, I've been looking for a solid grid to put under the glass top. And I found a printing company that will do it for $100-some. Like
that sounds pretty good.
$103. Yeah, not bad. But right now what I've done is tried to use graph paper, and only one review was good enough to say all the lines are square inches. They lied. So if you have to cover a entire conference table with grid, guys, just go big. Yeah, Eli, you got a solution. I need to hear it.
If you know you're going to have a dungeon ahead of time, you can cut out cardboard, like cereal box cardboard, and then draw lines on the back of it, or even like glue down grids onto the back of it. And then you can have it like down, face down, and flip it, or you can just have numbers on the back, toss it out.
I like that.
That's how I do conventions, and it makes things real fast.
Like homemade dungeon tiles, basically.
Yeah, homemade dungeon tiles.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, Craig, with you going back to an in-person game, which
Yeah.
is something that you were kind of excited about,
Extremely
you mentioned
excited.
stuff. Do you go all out? Do you put stuff on the table? Do you play primarily theater of the mind? I mean,
So it's a question that's looming large in my mind. We were in the middle of an adventure. We were in the middle of playing the Emerald Enchanter, which I think Charlie Stroh wrote that. It's a DCC adventure. No, Joseph Goodman wrote the Emerald Enchanter. But it's great stuff. It's good fun. And I had been running it online, so I had the map all drawn out. I had it all put together. I'm using Foundry. Big fan for a virtual tabletop. I love Foundry.
good system.
I run it through the Forge, so that they host it for you. It's like $5, $10 a month, something like that. Super worth it.
There is even a great Foundry module for Hackmaster.
Oh,
My
nice.
friend Nocturne is coding it, and when small secret, when he finishes doing it, I'm probably going to switch away from the Roll20 that I use and have coded. So
Nice.
Foundry's that good. Yeah, even with like that level of investment in Roll20, like that was the switch that I made as well. Anyway, unsolicited plug for Foundry aside, I'm still using it for my other games, but for the in-person stuff, I had the maps already there, so we mostly did everything theater of the mind. I had the battlement out, I had the markers in front of me, and for the final major encounter, I sketched the room out and I put some stuff down and I had miniatures down and I was poker chips and all kinds of stuff like that. But the next adventure, I need to decide, like, okay, we're going to do this in person. How am I going to do this? If I've got images, am I going to print them out ahead of time? What am I going to do for this dungeon? And it is a dungeon layout. It's got some stuff on it. Spoilers. I actually know that for sure one of my Monday players listens to this. Hi, Edvar. Not his real name. But I'll have to figure it out. Mostly, I am excited now that I can use props.
Mhm.
I have all kinds of stupid crap around my house. I've got crystal spheres, and I've got weird stuffed things, and I've got statues and swords and all kinds. And I can pass these around and I can hand them to people. So like, I don't really mind so much the dungeon layout because DCC doesn't really need a grid to be played on. The game is not, many of the games that I run are not written specifically as like, you must have a grid. If you can't measure out your fireball radius, you're out of luck. But it helps in some cases. Mostly, the overwhelming joy of being able to look people physically in the eye while we're playing, except for Edvar, who's the remote one, is overwhelmingly good. But yeah, I'm definitely looking for opportunities to really take advantage of that in-person thing. I got some candles I can light for the scent. Like, problem is that I think part of it takes place in a sewer, so nobody but me is going to like that. So, oh well, we'll figure it out.
Gross.
yeah. Hackmaster is ran gridless or can be ran gridless. So, and I do a lot of like tabletop wargaming as well.
Mhm.
So there's kind of a mix of terrain and things that I can use to set up in-person games. I think a long-term goal is to get and build some like 3D dungeon for one of the Eli cons that we do when my gaming groups get together and play.
Aw.
So
There was a Ben Milton thing on his Questing Beast YouTube channel recently, where not recently, but in recent memory, where he talks about the utility of what are essentially like, I think it's like 1-inch wooden cubes you can order online. Like, yeah, you can get your Dwarven Forge stuff where everything is like custom built out, and you need to have this L shape for the dungeon, and God help you if you don't have it. But he's like, no, 1-inch cubes, glue them together, color them brown or green or black, and there you go. That may be in the spirit of your sort of bespoke dungeon tile thing. Got a little bit of wood glue, pop, pop, pop. There's your setup.
I have a friend that likes to build houses and buildings for war games, where they'll print out like resin bricks and mortar and then build it like a Lego or even brick by brick. The amount of details
Prints out individual
insane.
Resin bricks and mortars them together.
Yeah, I'll share some pictures of some of the work that he does, but he is absolutely insane modeler.
I am flabbergasted at that concept.
It is gorgeous.
So unfortunately the listeners aren't going to be able to see what I'm going to show you guys, but It's funny. Dwarven Forge got its start with non-plastic, non-resin dungeon material. So they were actually all like these not printed. These are cast molded dental plaster. So it's
My
a hard,
God,
hardened
Rob,
plastic.
why is it so hairy?
Oh God, I know. Right, that's actually just a white brick.
Fine, ruin
so-
it, will you?
These specific, because I do a lot of stuff for Epic Table Games, trying to figure out great molds and everything. These molds, which again you can't see, are for the plastic plaster. As Eli was mentioning, and Craig, you as well, these little tiny bricks come and you have to glue them together. I have to make 22 full castings of these bricks to get a single one-story house from Bill Hurst molds.
Serious question.
Fantastic
Why
quality,
not? Why not just cast the wall as a single piece?
You can do a lot more with the individuals.
You can. It's way more versatile to do individuals, and then the larger the piece that you're making, especially when you look at interior side of the wall, exterior side of the wall, plus the top of the wall, you should have your flat bottom, which is a deep pour and hard to do near flawlessly, and it's hard to get out.
Deep pour. Okay.
Yeah, that's the big thing. But that's technical stuff, and we don't really have time to go into that because we're getting to the end of the episode.
I will say hobbyists do love building, and part of that is why it can be done like that. It's just it's fun. I sit and paint and build for hours.
It's fantastic, and even though, like I said, Epic Table Games, we have our small collection of things that haven't hit the website yet because I've just been really slow and enjoying time away from the technical aspect. Teaching people how to get their hands on some of these really cool things is awesome. Like, even if you don't buy my shit, buy something to make 3D stuff and have a good time. So I dig it. Guys, any words of advice as we close out this episode? No?
Rubbing alcohol feels really bad on your fingers if you bite your nails a lot, so be careful with that.
Biting your nails is gross anyway.
Challenge your players with new social situations.
You weren't specific. I didn't know what the topic for advice was.
You know what? How about you guys check out epictablegames.com, subscribe to our episode lists, and send us a voice message. We're still waiting for one, but I did get an email recently. I'll tell you guys about that later.
Any ratings and reviews helps.
Absolutely.
Good ones are preferred, but do what you can.
We'll see you guys
See you
next
next
time.
time.